How's it going, everybody? It's Matt again, and today we're going to take a look at Magic Square's MS-04 Munitioner, their upscaled version of their Legend Size Swindle. So this is the second one in the set of Combaticons that we've gotten. And the box is a little bit smaller than Brawl's, but it is still pretty nice with the art on the front and on the back with his tech specs and whatnot. So set that aside. He, of course, also comes with the instructions they all come with, and with his card if you care about these. So comes with those. But here he is in vehicle mode. He's going to come packaged in robot mode, so I always like to start in vehicle mode, so we're starting in vehicle mode. Ignore the faction label, because that won't be there, of course, but here he is. And he's like mostly painted. He looks pretty good. The wheels are not rubber, they are plastic, so love or hate that. I tend to not like plastic wheels. I would prefer it if they were rubber, but it's fine. I mean, he rolls good, but yeah, not too bad. He's missing taillights though. There's no taillights or anything on him, but he does clean up pretty nice. I think he looks the part. There's the underside. Actually cleans up decent. Thing that I don't like though is the headlights. The headlights are just clear plastic slapped on, you know, the yellow plastic, and if they had painted a little bit of silver in there, I think that probably would have looked a bit better, but just doesn't look quite right. Also, I definitely would have preferred it if the windshield were blue, kind of like how his cartoon model is, but instead we have kind of like an opaque black for the windshield, so I don't know. Definitely would have preferred it if it were blue. The seats actually have this weird texture to it, like faux leather, which is kind of cool how they did that. But that's pretty much it with him in vehicle mode. He's going to come with a bunch of different stuff. He's going to come with this spare wheel. It's all waffled out on the back, but you can, of course, plug it into these two posts on the back of the Jeep, like so. He's going to come with a array of different parts. He's going to come with his big cannon that he's known for, and it can rotate up here to position that hole wherever you need it to. He's also going to come with his little handheld missile, and the tab here, or the handle, can fold out so he can hold that in his hand. And he's going to come with this mounting part for his vehicle mode. But there's also a handle that can flip out here, because you can make this crazy combined weapon, but it can also rotate here. So if you wanted to, you could take both of his little weapons here, and this peg will go into this hole right there. And then this hole right here will receive that peg. We just need to rotate it around like so, and put it on there. And then we can flip this handle out, and you can make this big weapon thing that the Legend Scale version couldn't do. So it's kind of cool. But you can, of course, put this on the vehicle just by taking this rear section, and it's going to plug in either of these little gaps here, but it is a pain in the ass to get it in here. So you're going to have to take this off, and it has to sit in a specific way like this, with these little notches facing in. And basically we're going to have to separate all this. And the reason I say it's a pain in the ass is getting these legs together in vehicle mode is kind of rough. So undoing them is a little heartbreaking. But yeah, because they peg in very, very snugly. I can't even get it apart. I'm worried about scratching the paint just by there, because they pegged it together very tightly on that peg right there. So I'm just gonna kind of, oops, I need to put it facing this way, because it'll only allow you to put it in one specific orientation. And now I'm going to have a horrible time trying to get this back together. That's good enough. You get the idea. But yeah, it can fit in just like that. But he is also gonna, here, I'm gonna put that over there. He also comes with the big combiner foot. This is the same combiner foot that came with Brawl. Of course, it just has the ankle rocker on the other side, but it's the exact same thing. You know, this folds out and that'll come up on the back of the leg, and got articulation here in the toe and 2 different joints. So it is a combiner section. Obviously, I'm not going to go over his combine mode form in this video. I'm going to wait to do that until I have all the figures. So we have another combiner piece. All right, so let's jump right into transformation. I already took all that stuff off, and yeah, these legs having just a horrible time trying to peg these things back together, or anytime I transform this thing. I've just always have problems getting these legs together. I don't know if that peg is just too big for that hole, or if I need to whittle down some of the paint on there, but I think it's the paint that's causing it. But anyways, I think we need to do that anyway, so we're gonna split his legs. These sections here on the doors, we're just gonna pull off of those, and there's 2 little dovetails they attach to, and then they attach on the purple part right there. Just kind of pull that off of there on either side to free all of this up. And again, the paint on this thing just makes everything super tight. There we go. Pull that off. And now we're going to kind of just detach from there. I'm going to pull up on this section just to kind of get this all loose and out of the way. We're actually going to take this steering wheel just so I don't end up breaking it off. I'm going to move that in like so. Just kind of get it out of the way. So let's transform the legs. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to kind of lift up on these panels here to unpeg them from all this. And then we're going to want to pull out on this whole section here. And it's going to slide away from here like so. So it should be free like this. And then we're going to take this panel here and just kind of lift it up. And this little piece right here, I'm going to fold that part in. And then this whole section here should just be freely rotating. So now we're going to take this panel here, just pull up on it and move it down out of the way slightly so that we can get clearance to rotate this section out like this. And then this part here will unpeg from here, and it is on a whole bunch of different joints up here that will allow you to move it up and out of the way like that. Just really spread these legs open. And then this part right here is going to detach from here and then detach here from the thigh, and this whole section will fold down like that. And then the foot section here is going to kind of lift off of that peg that pegs into the toe section here. Lift that up, then rotate this toe out, and then turn it around 180 degrees. And we'll just have that out of the way for now. And then this panel right here is going to need to rotate all the way around, and the seat is going to fold up inside there. And then up to here, this panel is going to push down on that little track, and this is going to come up like this, and then this is going to untab from here like that, and then it's going to slide up on that pin and then fold down, and everything's going to kind of compress together like that. And then this whole section is going to rotate in, and then the wheel, you want this trapezoid section here to be facing up. You're going to kind of pull like that, and it's going to come up on this track, and then it's going to wrap around. Actually, you want to have that part up. It's going to wrap around like this, and now everything will just kind of compress together like that. This panel here will rotate out, and this whole section will come up like so and rest up against that. and then this section will come up and it will peg into that panel. And then from here, this panel will come up and it will peg together right like that. And then this panel on that dovetail will complete everything together like so. And it pegs it down here too. And then the foot just comes down. And then there is a leg. Oh, and you want to move the thigh forwards. And then you're just going to rotate it around at the thigh. And then there's one leg. So again, here on the other leg, I lift that panel off. I'm going to separate all of this like that. Push that panel in, pull that out, rotate that around. And here, I need to lift that panel off, lift that panel off, which will free this section. Rotate that out, rotate that out, rotate that, turn it around. All right, and now this part here, push in, rotate up, compress, open the wheel, and flip that down, pull that, slide, push back down, and rotate this whole thing in. This come up like so. Oops, and that has to rotate. Seat goes down, leg goes up, pegs together there. This section comes up, pegs together there, and then that closes up. Foot comes down, leg goes in, rotate around. There's the legs. As you can tell, I've done that a few times because it's a bit annoying to transform these lower legs. So now we're going to rotate this completely around like that. And then we're just going to kind of leave it hanging like this for a second. The grill, pull to either side, and then rotate them up. And we're just going to pull down and get that kind of out of the way. And then these two wheel sections, they peg in a whole bunch of different spots. Here, here, and here, and then here at the base of the wheel. Helps to kind of, I might actually need to use a tool. Again, the paint tolerances are not the best. Pull up on that. We'll pull this down. It comes down on this armature here. And then we need to turn the wheel because it's on a secondary rotation joint right here. You need to push it down and then put that panel up like that. So same thing on other side. There we go. Pull it down, rotate that section down, put that panel up. We just kind of wanted these out of the way for now. There are two pegs that peg in up here at the top of this hood. I almost always need a tool to get that undone, like so, which allows you to pick this entire section up off of there on this sliding section and rotate this out like that. And then this entire grill will just push in like that along with this part, like so. And then these two sections will fold up and in like this and then peg into these two spots here, like that. So now we just kind of want to get that out of the way. And then everything here, this is where it gets a little weird up here at the top. So you want to kind of use your fingers and push in to this while also kind of moving this out. So you're going to want to push it up like that to kind of get this section up and then rotate out like this so that you can flip the entire arm out on that joint. But you don't want to do it too far because we actually need to get this panel out. So only rotate until about here, until this is flush. And then you're probably going to need a tool to come in here and get that panel out. And this panel just needs to rotate up like that. And then you can rotate the arm down like that. Get it out of the way. So same thing here, push up on that, kind of finagle it out like so we can rotate about there, and then get this panel to come out like that, and then rotate it around. And then this windshield, you're going to need to be very careful with this because this is clear plastic and I don't trust those joints. Kind of push back so it slides this section up like this, and then rotate it forwards while also rotating this back, and then it will all just kind of compress down like that. And then you'll need to push it back down to lock it into place. And then this whole section here will rotate all the way around like this. Let me pan the camera up. And then the head is going to have this little panel that flips up like this. And then the head will just kind of come up. And then this whole section will go in like this. Bring the head down so it locks onto that panel. And then just push it all together like this. And it should line up like so. And then this purple panel will peg in there and there, locking that in. And then you have to rotate the head one way so that you can get one panel down to lock together with that little dovetail right here. And then rotate the head the other way, and then you can do the same. Like that. And now we will just compress the torso down like so, and like so. And then we'll do the arms. So now moving this, these panels will fold down. This panel will lift up to give you some more space. Rotate that out. Rotate the hand out, and then we will compress it down like so, pegging it together. And then you can pull the arm out, rotate the elbow so it's the correct direction, and there is an arm. So same thing here, panel down, pull up, rotate out, flip the hand out, bring it down, peg it all together, pull, rotate, and there he is. There's Swindle. Let me get my camera adjusted. So there he is. Definitely not as fun a transformation as like Brawl. I think Brawl's was a little bit better. Obviously the legend scale version of this wasn't as fun either. Just the legs have so much going on in them, and the torso is a little bit weird to transform. But yeah, he's all right. Taking a look at him, I think he looks pretty good. Definitely wish the windshield panel was blue. Would definitely look a lot better to me if it were. And I think he looks pretty good. The back, there's definitely a lot of detail going on the back, but on the front, it's pretty plain. Definitely a lot more plain than Brawl's was. But I mean, I guess that's kind of how he's supposed to look. He's supposed to look like he stepped right out of the cartoon. It doesn't really bother me that much because I tend to like the toon style more than like super in-depth design stuff anyways, so it's completely preference based there. But yeah, he's completely painted. He looks really nice. He got some nice paint all over him. I will say there's a little bit of paint mismatch on the thighs, so it's like really glossy. And then on the inner thigh sections here, for some reason, it's kind of different tone for some reason. But I think he looks pretty good. I did forget to mention that he does have different faces. So here he is with his kind of like smirking face. This is the one I like to display him with. But I did forget to mention at the beginning of the video, he does come with a kind of standard looking face, and these are pretty easy to swap out. You just pull up on the chin, and then you can replace the different face panels if you want to. But he can still hold all of his accessories just fine. Oh, and the wheel that you get, the spare tire, can plug into his back on those two pegs, so you can put them in like so. And he can still hold his weapons just fine in his hands. They peg in with these little ports in standard style like that. This is the big one. You can plug it in just fine, but you can also take the individual weapon parts, set that aside. He can hold his little missile the exact same way, hold that just fine. And then of course there are actually two different ways that you can attach the cannon. You can attach it to the front little hole right here with this peg, like that, to have him how he look, kind of like in the cartoon. Or you can take either of these little pegs on either side and you can plug them into this kind of fake wheel here, like so. And you can have it on the side of his arm. So there's the accessories. You can still do stuff with that. But let's go over articulation real quick. So starting up here at the head, he can rotate at the base of the neck just fine. And then there is a peg here in the back of the head, which allows you to rotate up and down. There's no real, well, I guess there's a little bit of a side to side, but it's like, I think that's just looseness on the joint, so I wouldn't really count that. Here at the torso, you have a joint up there, which moves a little bit, but there's the joint that's in the shoulder, which allows you to get them out about that far, and then you can rotate all the way around on that joint too. You can rotate above the, what is that, bicep. You can rotate there all the way around, and then there's a joint here at the elbow, just a single joint that gets you a little past 90 degrees. You can rotate here at the wrist, and there is a little pin here which allows you to rotate the wrist in and out. The hands are different from Brawl's, unfortunately. I don't really like this hand setup. There's a pin that runs all the way through the fingers here, and then there is a pin that runs through the different fingers up here. So you can open the hand like so, and then the three fingers here are attached, and then the single finger here is on its own. So back to pinned fingers, which is kind of unfortunate. The hand, or the thumb here, is on a ball joint, so you can move that however, and then there's a single pin here at the joint on the thumb, but it doesn't really move much at all on mine. It's kind of scary, I don't want to break it. But yeah, so the hands are probably not as good as Brawl's, but they're a little bit smaller, so I get why they had to change it up, I suppose. Down here at the waist, you got a full rotation. You do have an ab crunch, but you have to kind of lift up to utilize it, so it's not bad. The hips are pretty much the exact same thing as what Brawl's are. Like them or hate them, I tend to not like them, but the hip skirts can move out, the back skirts can move out, and the hips, like I said, they function the same way as Brawl's. They can go out all the way on those nice ratchets, back all the way, and then they're going to have to use this panel here. The whole thing will rotate up, so you can get some pretty high kicks. It just looks kind of funky. And then, again, you can't just move the leg down, because then the panel will get stuck. You have to push while you move it down, which is a little weird to manipulate. It can rotate down there at the thigh, and then we have a double jointed knee, which will give you, well, pretty much exactly 180 degrees. So pretty good there. The foot has a couple of different places. So you can rotate the foot in for that ankle tilt. The toe also moves, and the toe can kind of pivot up and down ever so slightly. So yeah, pretty good articulation. I mean, Magic Square is kind of known for their good articulation, so I mean, pretty good. I think that he be pretty easy to pose, other than the hips. The hips are like, kind of weird. But yeah, articulation. Let's do some size comparisons. All right, so first off, here he is next to Brawl, his other Combaticon companion, the only two that we have so far. So yeah, he's a little bit shorter, which I think is perfect. I definitely like the scale that they got for him. It looks really good. There he is with Magic Square's Optimus 2.0 and the Takara's Masterpiece Megatron. There he is with Deformation Space, Crimson Wings, their Starscream, and the Takara Masterpiece Sideswipe. Show you how he is with an MP Carbot. And why not? There is the original, the Legend Scale version of their Bruticus, and obviously I didn't feel like transforming the Legend Scale Swindle just to show him off for this, but there he is in the original. Okay, so let's go over his articulation. We're going to go ahead and get rid of his accessories so we can go over all that. So at his head, there is another kind of rotation point here at the back of his head, so you can get his head up quite far, down a little bit. No side to side or anything like that, but you can rotate at the little pin that is at his neck. Oh my gosh, this wind. Okay. Down here at the waist, you do have an ab crunch. It is very kind of recessed in there. It's a little tight, but you can raise it off of that section there, and you can get him to go about that far. At least that's as far as I could get him to go. And you can go back quite a bit. At the shoulders, you can rotate up here. Not too much, but just a little bit. And then he has the kind of a pinned shoulder right here, which allows you to get all the way out. You can rotate all the way around there. There's no kind of butterfly joint or anything kind of like how Brawl had, so you can't really get some super dynamic poses with the shoulders, which is a little unfortunate. But you can rotate here at the bicep all the way around, and he does have a nice elbow joint, which gets you a little bit over 90. His wrist here can rotate at that pin, and he does have the same joint as Brawl at the palm. His thumb is on a ball joint, and then he has a single little base pin right here, which allows you to move that joint. The hands are different from Brawl's, which is a little unfortunate. They're not on ball joints here at the knuckles, so you kind of end up with this kind of claw. You know, like the MP claw, which is kind of unfortunate, but they are smaller hands. I guess that it wasn't possible for them to collapse in the forearms. But there is a pin, one attached to the trigger finger, and the other three are attached all together down here. And then there's another joint right in here for the 3 fingers, and then the one for the pointer finger. So it's not the worst, not the best, but it is okay. Gets the job done. Now, the hips on this one definitely are a little bit weird, even compared to how Brawl's were. So you do still have the back skirt that can get out of the way, and the side skirt, and of course it's the exact same joint system that Brawl has, but I'm really worried about the paint chipping on this one, just because of the tolerances. But you can get the legs out, or back all the way. You can get them out all the way on that ratchet, and you can rotate this up like so, and it kind of rotates the whole front section of the waist out of the way. But it does look a little, I don't know, looks a little weird to me. So I don't know if I like that on this one. There we go. You can rotate here at the thigh. You do have a double jointed knee. This one is a little bit tighter than what Brawl's was, but you can, yeah, that second joint here is really, really tight, but you can get almost 180 degrees, which is pretty impressive. You do have an ankle rocker in there, and the toe can also rotate. And then you can get a little bit of bend out of the toe, especially if you bring it down a little bit. You can get a little bit of bend for some more dynamic poses, but it gets the job done. So yeah, there's everything as far as articulation. I actually think he's a little bit less articulated than what Brawl was, but he's decent. He still has pretty much everything that I think that you would need to get most of your poses that you want. Alright, and that does it for Magic Square MS-04 Munitioner. This is their masterpiece upscaled version of their Swindle. I really like him. He's a really good figure. I know I'm kind of a Magic Square fanboy, or at least it sounds like I'm a Magic Square fanboy at this point because I tend to like their stuff. My only complaints with him, of course, is I don't really like the way that the hips work. He's got very limited elbow articulation and shoulder articulation, which isn't the greatest. You know, his hands. Normally I don't really care too much about hands, but just because of how good brawls work, I'm kind of disappointed that they kind of reverted back to the whole claw type of setup for his hands on this one. But I get why they would have to, so it's not too much of a big deal for me. But the one thing that does kind of bother me a little bit is the blankness on some of the parts, especially because like here rotating around the back, he's a little bit busier in the design, but then of course when you come around to the front, it's very just kind of muted, just not a lot going on, but it's by design. That's kind of how he's supposed to be. So I'm kind of like I don't know, kind of indifferent about it, but I think I actually probably would have preferred at least a little bit more of something, just because I'm looking at Brawl and he has a little bit more going on with his legs. But that's about it with him. I did forget to mention when I was talking about the weapons that with these little pegs here, you can peg them into the little fake wheels on either side of the arm, so you can make them look like so, just so you're not limiting his elbow by pegging it onto the front. So that is another thing that you can do with that. But of course, thank you so much for watching this far into the video. Of course, thank you to all of my patrons that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And of course, if you want to support me on Patreon, I'd really appreciate it. It's just another way that you can show that you like my stuff. But that is more, of course, for like my Armored Core stuff. But, just another way that you can support me. If you like any of my other videos, or you like my type of review style, then you can check out any of my other videos that are on my channel. They're on a playlist, I believe, so you can go check those out. Of course, I already reviewed Brawl, and I will be reviewing Onslaught when he comes out, and of course, Blast Off and Vortex as those are released. So check those out when those come out. So like, comment, subscribe. Definitely let me know what you think about this guy in the comments, and what you think about any of the stuff that Magic Square has going on, or if you're excited for any of their upcoming releases or upscales. I certainly am, and I will be getting and reviewing them as they come out. So yeah. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.